Thank you, Nikki, and thanks everyone for having me here today. So as Nikki introduced me, I'm a group leader and a senior research scientist at NeuRA and UNSW. And today I'm going to be talking to you about resilience, what it is and how you can promote it in your own life. So what is resilience? Resilience, first off, is not just a coping mechanism, and it's not something that only some people are born with. It's actually a process of adaptive recovery following adversity, and it's the series of steps that you take to effectively deal with stress and to thrive for optimal levels of well-being. And the reason it's important is because it can help you cope with everyday stress, but also trauma, and it can also help you protect against the development of mental health problems throughout your life. So my quest is to decode resilience in the brain. What we want to understand is for those people who are more resilient, whether they have different brain structures or does their brain function differently to those who are less resilient? And are there genes in their DNA that might promote more resilience and be protective? And how does that all interact with your life experience in promoting resilience? And why is this so important to understand right now? If you think back to 20 or 30 years ago, our lives were very different. We didn't have the internet, we didn't have phones, we didn't have climate change or selfies. So our life is a lot more intense, it's time pressured, and it's quite uncontrollable. And if you're a parent like me and you're looking at your child and all you want to do is really protect them, and the problem is in schools we're not really taught how to deal with stress effectively. It's not something that is taught, and it's really an important life skill that we should all actually be able to access. So when I talk about stress or life challenges, what am I talking about? The first two are major traumatic events that can happen either in your childhood or your adulthood. And these are quite serious traumas that you can experience, such as neglect, family conflicts, bullying in schools, death of loved ones, but also warfare, car accidents and so forth. And they're actually quite common. So in childhood trauma that can impact 1 in 5 people, and adult trauma 1 in 2 people, and that's one event. And then we're talking about daily hassles. So this is not how many people are impacted, it's how often you're impacted. So these are relationship conflicts, financial stress, work demands, and so forth. So what is the impact of stress? And the important thing to remember, it varies with every person. And when we're talking about completing a task, actually what you need is a certain amount of stress in order to perform that task effectively. So you need to be motivated and focused on that task. If you had too little stress, you'd probably be bored, and if you had too much, you'd be burnt out. And there is some research to show that actually, if you're exposed to mild controllable stresses, it can actually act like an inoculation effect, where it's like a vaccine. So it protects you or helps you learn the effective coping strategies to use in future stresses. And then if you have too much stress, there's a proportion of the population that actually go on and develop mental health problems. So that's 1 in 5 in every 12 months. So the goal of our research program is to understand how these different forms of stress can impact the resilience process, how it can impact the brain, and how our genes can interact in that process as well. And our team are running quite a few studies in this, but one of our largest is this twin study. So we've collected 1,600 twins across Australia, and they're all adults, ranging from 18 to 60. And these twins did a bunch of measures such as questionnaires online and cognitive tests. They also provided their saliva for DNA sampling, and they also did some MRI scans and EEG brain scans. And here is just a couple of examples of some of our twins. So we've both got identical and non-identical twins, and the identical one's on the left and non-identical on the right. And you can just see, just looking at their brain images, how different the non-identical twins can be versus the identical twins. So one of the first outcomes from this study is we developed a wellbeing scale called COMPAS. So this has a bunch of items that measures wellbeing, and these are some example items. So if you had a read of those, and if you answered yes to most of those, then I think you're probably doing okay. But essentially, it gives us a total score of wellbeing, but also these 6 dimensions of wellbeing. And because we've tested this in our twin sample, we can actually identify the role of genetics versus environment in this particular measure. And what we found was that genetics contributes 48% to wellbeing. So that's roughly half-half. So half your genetics, half your environment is contributing to wellbeing. So our next goal is to try and quantify resilience in the brain, and we're focusing on these 3 brain networks because they're the ones that are usually impacted in mental health disorders. So we're looking at the threat network, so that's how your brain reacts when you're encountering something that's potentially threatening. Then we've got the reward network, so that's how your brain functions when you're in front of something that you really want. And then we've got the executive function network. So that's the part of the networks that is involved when you're thinking, when you're paying attention to something, but also behavioural control. We've started to look at this in our twin sample, and what we looked at was those who had higher wellbeing, whether they had differences in their brain structure versus those who had lower wellbeing. And what we found was there was this impact in this particular region of the brain called the pons, which is highlighted in yellow. And what we found was those people who were high in wellbeing or high in resilience had smaller pons. And this particular region of the brain is involved in things such as sleep, arousal, respiration, and it also sends signals to other parts of your brain, preparing your body to respond to things that you encounter. So essentially, we found that people who have high resilience have a smaller pons. And what this means is either they have an altered arousal state, which impacts how they respond to stress, or this particular region of the brain, because of its change in its structure, influences how the brain then functions in the other regions and the other networks. So we're trying to explore this a little bit more at the moment in our other data. Now, just to finish off the talk today, I want to just give you some tips, very simple tips that you can use to build resilience in your life. And this is based on the framework of the COMPAS that I just mentioned. So it has 6 key principles. And essentially what you want to do is try and target each of these 6 dimensions on the side here to promote resilience in your life. So the first one is composure. So this is how you deal with stress. And essentially there are good ways and bad ways of dealing with stress. So you've got the adaptive coping strategies. So they're things such as active problem solving. So you actually try and just deal with the problem using humour or other relaxation techniques such as yoga or going for a walk. And then you've got the maladaptive ones. So that's avoiding the problem, denial, blaming yourself, venting, smoking, drinking, all those kind of things. So the important thing with this particular principle is just being more aware of how you deal with stress. What's your natural response when you're in a stressful situation? And then learn when you're actually starting to get stressed. So pay attention to your body. Learn if your hands are sweating, or if your heart is racing, or if you're feeling really irritated that you're starting to get stressed. So that the next time you're in that kind of situation and you can see those symptoms coming up, you learn perhaps to take a breath, to stop before you respond, and maybe try a different strategy and just see how that works. And the next one is own worth. So this is a really important one. This is essentially about your self-worth and knowing who you are and what you stand for and what your personal values are. So what is right and wrong to you? And the importance of knowing that is so that you can preserve healthy boundaries when you're dealing with other people. So knowing that if someone is perhaps taking advantage of you or pushing you beyond what you consider right or wrong, to be assertive and to learn to say no without having to be aggressive or passive aggressive, and then also knowing when to seek help or support. And it's about just having compassion for yourself and liking yourself. I know that sounds funny. But when things don't go to plan, think about, do you beat yourself up or are you a number one supporter? There's two very different ways to deal with it. The third is mastery. So this is how much control you feel you have over your environment. How much control do you feel you have over your life? And to promote this, you can do things such as just being more knowledgeable. So if you don't understand something and you don't know how to make a decision about something, learn more about it so that you can make these informed decisions. And rather than being passive in your life, be a bit more proactive. So if you want to grow, if you want to step out of your comfort zone so you can learn new things and make an active contribution. And then to be self-reliant. Now this is a really important one, to actually keep your happiness in your own pocket. A lot of people seek relationships, for instance, so they feel complete. And really, or they outsource their happiness to their partners or their children, and that's their whole focus in their life. And really, the important thing to remember is these people are a part of your life, but you really need to have your own interests and goals and sources of inspiration. Fourth one is positivity. So this is a nice, happy and easy one. So it's just learning to actually smile, like actually be aware of your facial expressions when you're encountering people, and laughing and having a positive outlook. And this particular image here, I particularly love. Has everyone seen this particular? No? Okay, I'm on Facebook way too much. But it's just an image that really makes me laugh. And if you feel like you have these kind of photos, you can just hang them around your desk, just to remember, to always look at the positive outlook. Another thing you can do is schedule time for fun. So I don't know about you, but my diary is chock full of stuff that I mostly don't actually want to do. So what I do is I seek out things you want to do and you actually enjoy, and I put it in my diary and I actually highlight them in yellow. So you're looking at, your next couple of weeks and you think, I actually got something to look forward to. And then you can also do positive to-do lists. So at the end of the day or the week, instead of writing all your things you have to do, write the things that actually achieved or that went well for that week. Now the fifth one is achievement. So this is focusing on the things that you actually enjoy doing, what you're passionate about, what you really get excited about doing. It's those kind of activities that you get so focused on that you forget everything else that's going on, because it gives you such joy and it's such achievement. And it doesn't even have to be your work. It can just be something that you do outside of work. It can be baking, it could be singing in the shower, whatever. But what you got to do is set goals so you actually get these things infused in your life so that you can satisfy your needs and they're not contingent on the needs of others. So in other words, what I mean is, if you want to get fit and healthy, do it because you want to do it, not because you're wanting everyone to recognise that you look really good. It's a completely different reason. And last but not least, we have satisfaction. So this is how satisfied you just feel with your life overall. And the important thing to remember with mental health is you got to look after your body as well, as we just heard. So you got to have the right diet, sleep, exercise, and to be mindful and present in the moment. When we're talking about mindfulness, the easiest way to remember how to do it is the 5 senses. So you got sight, touch, taste, smell, hearing. So whenever you're in a particular situation and you actually want to enjoy that moment, so for example, you're sharing a meal with someone, you want to look at the meal, you want to touch it, you want to taste it and smell it, and just enjoy it for what it is and not worry about yesterday or tomorrow. And then lastly is to practice gratitude. So being grateful for everything that's good going on in your life, but also the lessons learned from the challenges. So in summary, if someone asks you what is resilience or how do you promote it, these are your 3 take-home points. First off, resilience is a process of adaptive recovery following stress. We're not born resilient, so anyone can build resilience. And COMPAS is a tool that you can use to both measure well-being and build resilience to stress in our life. Just like to acknowledge all of our team that's contributed to this work. So thank you.